Aloha. One nation under God. Are we still that one nation under God? I am the daughter of a disabled Vietnam Army veteran. At the age of 17, my father joined the Army. At the age of 23, he fought cancer and won. I am also the daughter of an Air Force officer. I myself didn't sign up for the military service. Instead, I went straight to college. I grew up on two islands, Oahu and the Big Island, and I know both islands like the back of my hands. And even though we are one Hawaii, Oahu is a completely different culture and ballgame. In 1892, our Pledge of Allegiance originally read, "We give our hearts and hearts to God, and our country, one language, one flag." To God, that's what I want to point out here. Hawaii is no longer a Christian-dominant state. At least 50% of our elected politicians to Washington, D.C., half of them I know are not Christians. Hawaii has lost its Christianity-dominant foothold. In 1923, the National Flag Conference called for the words, "My flag," to be changed to the flag of the United States, so that new immigrants would not confuse loyalties between their birth countries and the United States. In 1942, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. President Truman stated, "May this day of infamy never be forgotten." In 1954, President Eisenhower stated that something was missing from the flag. He cited Abraham Lincoln's words, "Under God." And those defining words sets the United States apart from any other nation. He stated that this nation shall, under God, have a new birth of freedom. In this way, we will always constantly strengthen our spiritual weapons, which will be our country's most powerful resource in peace or in war. This is for Hawaii's spiritual protection as well. The pledge now as it reads, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God." This is a godly nation. Our country was founded by those that believed in God Almighty. God's first commandment states that we shall not worship any other gods before Him. That includes any instruments and any other books other than the Holy Bible. His very first commandment is very straightforward and simple. I'm not here to preach to you. However, my time is now. And now I have come out of the private sector as a real estate developer, engineer, and a scientist to set things back on track, because I saw that this was a very serious issue and concern for Hawaii. I am not a career politician, no, because this is not what Hawaii needs right now. We don't need another career politician, non-Christian, and that is what my biggest competitor is, a non-Christian Hindu. I have never met her personally, and I'm sure she is the sweetest gal, but her beliefs, her values, her morals, her foundation is not a Christian one. And she makes this very clear by going around the world professing her Hindu beliefs and traditions using her congressional powers. This is not American at all. This jeopardizes Hawaii and our nation's security. This puts us at risk amongst other nations as we turn our backs against God by electing non-Christians to represent Hawaii. This also makes God very jealous. I may not always be politically correct, but when I see something that ain't right, I'll talk about it. We don't have time to mess around with the seriousness of the issues that Hawaii is faced with. These are very troubling times right now. I had people tell me that she has the freedom of religion. Well, so do I. See, I was born American. My father served in the Army, and my stepfather served in the Air Force, and my grandfather served in the Navy. And that is my freedom of religion to talk about my religion here in the middle of politics. I am protected. My fathers fought for my rights, and I am standing up and exercising our constitutional rights to be an American, to be free in my country. And I am also standing up for your rights too. Homelessness. This war on the escalating costs on this multi-billion-dollar rail, the long-term onset of Fukushima, the escalating numbers of victims that will succumb to cancer, our energy oil crisis, and to ensure our food and water supply stays safe are a few of my main concerns. One thing that I would like to do is to make Hawaii 75% energy renewable, not by the year 2050, but within 5 years. That's 35 years from now. Also, I'd like to address our food production. I'd like to keep the foods we grow here in the islands, here for our island people, instead of exporting it all away. I am trying to unite Hawaii because we are so divided. It breaks my heart, yes it does, to see Hawaii and Americans suffer. Yes, it's because this is where East meets West. This makes us vulnerable. Not every war is fought with arms and weapons. This is an economical war, a political war, and God's holy spiritual war. This is wrong for Hawaii, wrong for America, and that's why I have stepped up and to help restore Christianity back to Hawaii and back to America. We don't want to lose Hawaii to immigrant foreigners who bring their false religion and gods here. This is my Hawaii too. This is my America. This is a movement to convert Hawaii back to Christianity with the help and the guidance from God. And Revelation mentions the 144,000 special angels. And that's exactly the amount of evangelical voters that I need. My name is Angela Kaaihue. I am a Christian. I believe in God Almighty and only in one God. I believe in Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Let's stand in the light of God's grace together. I'm working really hard fighting for you, for our families, for our Hawaii, for our kingdom, and for our America. Take back Hawaii, make Hawaii great again, help to restore Hawaii back to Christianity, and preserve our America. God bless America, and God bless Hawaii too. My name is Angela Kaaihue, and I'm your candidate for U.S. Congress, House of Representatives. Come this November, I'm asking you to register if you haven't yet done so, and vote Kaaihue for Congress. Thank you very much. Please stay tuned for my next segment on Religion History 101, as we discuss Christianity versus Hinduism. The Hindu prayer. On September 14, in the year 2000, a Hindu priest, Venkatachalapathy Samudrala of the Shiva Vishnu Hindu Temple in Parma, Ohio, opened a session of the U.S. House of Representatives with a prayer. He was the first Hindu to do so. Representative Sherrod Brown of Ohio had invited Mr. Samudrala as a guest chaplain, said, "Today is a great day for Indian-American relations. India and the United States share the bonds of history and culture. I requested the House chaplain invite Mr. Samudrala to give today's prayer as a testimony to the religious diversity that is the hallmark of our nation." Mr. Samudrala's prayer reminds us that while we may differ in culture and traditions, we are alike in the basic aspiration for peace and righteousness. The initial response by the Family Research Council was of this. Robert Reiger and Timothy Diley wrote an essay about the prayer. It appeared on September 21st in the Culture Facts section of the Family Research Council's website. It was also emailed or mailed to the subscribers of Culture Facts, a weekly newsletter. The FRC is a Washington, D.C.-based fundamentalist Christian agency. It was spun off from the Colorado Springs-based focus on the family many years ago. According to a fax received from the FRC Legal Studies section, this essay failed to go through our full editing process, which would have removed any statements inconsistent with the FRC's official position. The essay was part of a question and answer section labeled Religious Pluralism or Tolerance. It included a question from a member of the public. A Hindu priest was recently invited to give the opening invocation in the House of Representatives. What's wrong with this? Riger and Daly's answer was, in part, what's wrong is that it is one more indication that our nation is drifting from its Judeo-Christian roots. Alas, in our day when tolerance and diversity have replaced the Ten Commandments as the only remaining absolute dictums, it has become necessary to celebrate non-Christian religions even in the halls of Congress. Our founders expected that Christianity and no other religion would receive support from the government as long as that support did not violate people's conscience and their right to worship. They would have found utterly incredible the idea that all religions, including paganism, be treated with equal deference. Many people today confuse Western religious tolerance with religious pluralism. The former embraces biblical truth while allowing for freedom of conscience, while the later assumes all religions are equally valid, resulting in moral relativism and ethical chaos. Pluralism. It is a state of society in which members of diverse ethnic, racial, religious, or social groups maintain and develop their traditional culture or special interest within the confines of a common civilization. That is the definition of pluralism. An illustrious day for all Americans and a memorable day for us, so declared Rajan Zed, a Hindu priest from Nevada, after being invited to open the July 12, 2007 session of the United States Senate with a Hindu prayer. A prayer that he indicated would rely heavily on Hindu scriptures, the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita, wearing the saffron robes synonymous with Hindu priests. Zed sprinkled on the Senate's podium some ganja water from the Ganges River, considered holy by Hindus, and then uttered the following prayer. Please don't mind my accent, but here. May we meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds, leads us from the unreal to real, from darkness to light, and from death to immorality. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. May the senators strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world, performing their duties with the welfare of others always in mind, because by devotion to selfless work, one attains the supreme goal of life. May they work carefully and wisely, guided by compassion and without thought for themselves. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long dwell in unity and concord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. The architects of American civilization would be aghast to give credence or credibility to pantheistic religion. God inside the earth and sky, etc., that advocates belief in thousands of gods while rejecting the one true God of the Bible would be unthinkable in America. In 1776, it was equally unthinkable for most Americans until the last 40 to 50 years. The politically correct climate now enshrouding America literally is suffocating the moral and religious sensibilities of society. The nod to Hinduism follows closely on the heels of election of a Muslim to the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as the first atheist in Congress, and now a first Hindu and the first Buddhist in 2012. It was on June 28, 1787, in the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, that one of the least religious of the founders, Benjamin Franklin, then in his 80s, rose to his feet and made the proposal that Congress open their sessions with prayer. Yet on that occasion, the God, the religion, and the sacred scriptures that Franklin had in mind were certainly not the gods, religious, and scriptures of Hinduism. Here was his proposal in his own words. Note, lest the reader miss the fact that Franklin's speech is thoroughly saturated with allusions to the one true God and the Bible. Such references are noted in bold and biblical citations. In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, and scarce able to distinguish it, when presented to us, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hereto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights, James 1:17, to eliminate our understanding? In the beginning of the contest with Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. And have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs, Acts 1:3, I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men, Daniel 4:17. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, Matthew 10:29, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings, that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Psalms 127:1. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. Genesis 1:11. We shall be divided by our partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and byword down to future ages. Psalms 44:13 and 14, Jeremiah 24, verse 9. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the insistence of heaven and its blessing on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service. Founders like Franklin would not have dignified pagan religion that constitutes a blatant insult to the God of the universe, the one whom they ardently implored to guide and protect them. Neither would they have accepted the idea that sacred writings include the Hindu Vedas. For sure, the founders of America desired religious freedom. Technically, by religious freedom, they meant that all Protestant denominations should have the right to pursue their own interpretation of the Bible and to worship the God and Christ of the Bible according to their own conscience without governmental interference. As one of the fathers of American jurisprudence, Joseph Story, explained, The real object of the First Amendment was not to continence, much less to advance Mohammedanism or Judaism or infidelity by prostrating Christianity, but to exclude all rivalry among Christian sects and to prevent any national ecclesiastical establishment which should give to an hierarchy the exclusive patronage of the national government. Nevertheless, the founders were perfectly willing to extend the right of religious freedom to those who did not share the Protestant brand of the Christian religion. They opposed all religious persecution for the simple reason that Christian people love their fellow men and do not mistreat others. Matthew 7, verse 12. But make no mistake, the founders believed in the God of the Bible, and the vast majority of them believed in the validity of the Christian religion to the exclusion of all other gods and religions. They would not have countenanced giving non-Christian religions any sort of public endorsement or favorable encouragement. This fact is demonstrated easily by their innumerable forthright declarations regarding the essentiality of Christianity as the foundation on which the Republic was founded. It also is seen in the occasional explicit repudiation of such non-Christian religions as Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Hindus typically were styled Hindus, pagans, heathens, and idolaters. For example, consider the remarks by John Jay, a brilliant founder with a long and distinguished career in the formation and shaping of American civilization from the beginning. He was not only a member of the Continental Congress from 1774 to 1776, serving as its president from 1778 to 1779, but he also helped to frame the New York State Constitution and then served as the Chief Justice of the New York Supreme Court. He co-authored the Federalist Papers, was appointed by the first Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court by George Washington in 1789 to 1795, served as Governor of New York 1795 to 1801, and was the Vice President 1816 to 1821, and then Second President 1821 to 1827 of the American Bible Society. At the annual meeting of the American Bible Society on May 9, 1822, Jay commented on the almost universal view of Americans at the time relative to non-Christian religions. Although an immense heathen population in India was under the dominion, control, and influence of a Christian nation, yet it was deemed better policy to leave them in blindness than to risk incurring the inconveniences which might result from authorizing or encouraging attempts to relieve them from it. This policy was at length met with the neglect it deserved. The gospel had been introduced into India under the auspices of the British government, and various means are cooperating to advance its progress and hasten the time when the King of Saints will emancipate that people from the domination of the Prince of Darkness. Jay obviously viewed the non-Christian religions of India as heathen and the work of Satan, the Prince of Darkness, being an allusion to the devil. Where did the founders get their ideas regarding polytheism, paganism, and idolatry? Their assessment of Hinduism was in complete harmony with the Bible's own declarations. Those who make an image, all of them are useless, and their precious things shall not profit. They are their own witnesses. They neither see nor know, that they may be ashamed. Who would form a god or mold an image that profits him nothing? Surely all his companions would be ashamed, and the workmen, they are mere men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up, yet they shall fear. They shall be ashamed together. The blacksmith with the tongs works one in the coals, fashions it with hammers, and works it with the strength of his arms. Even so he is hungry, and his strength fails. He drinks no water and is faint. The craftsman stretches out his rule. He marks one out with chalk. He fashions it with the plane. He marks it out with his compass, and makes it like the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. He cuts down cedars for himself, and takes the cypress and the oak. He secures it for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a pine, and the rain nourishes it. Then it shall be for a man to burn, for he will take some of it and warm himself. Yes, he kindles it and bakes bread. Indeed, he makes a god and worships it. He makes it a carved image and falls down to it. He burns half of it in the fire. With this half he eats meat. He roasts a roast and is satisfied. He even warms himself and says, "Ah, I am warm. I have seen the fire." And the rest of it makes into a god, his carved image. He falls down before it and worships it, prays to it, and says, "Deliver me, for you are my God." They do not know nor understand. A deceived heart has turned him aside. That's from Isaiah chapter 44, verse 9 through 20. What profit is the image that its maker should carve it? The molded image, a teacher of lies, that the maker of its mold should trust in it, is to make mute idols. Woe to him who says to wood, "Awake," to silent stone, "Arise, it shall teach." Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, yet in it there is no breath at all. But the Lord is his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 18 through 20. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they do not speak. Eyes they have, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. Noses they have, but they do not smell. They have hands, but they do not handle. Feet they have, but they do not walk, nor do they mutter through their throat. Those who make them are like them. So is everyone who trusts in them. Psalms 115, verses 4 through 8. Every metalsmith is put to shame by the carved image, for his molded image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are futile, a work of errors. In the time of their punishment, they shall perish. Jeremiah 51, verse 17 through 18. The attitude of the founders towards Hindus may be seen in the attitude toward the Native American tribal groups that populated the North American continent at that time. Like Hindus, the Indians believed in many deities. In a letter dated May 2nd, 1788, addressed to a Moravian preacher named John Edwin, George Washington applauded the efforts of a Christian organization whose stated mission efforts were for the purpose of propagating the gospel among the heathen. So far, I am capable of judging. The principles upon which the society is founded and the rules laid down for its government appear to be well calculated to promote so laudable and arduous an undertaking. And you will permit me to add that if an event so long and so earnestly desired as that of converting the Indians to Christianity and consequently to civilization can be effected, the Society of Bethlehem bids fair to bear a very considerable part in it. The exclusivity of Christianity also was made clear by General Washington during the Revolutionary War when he delivered a speech to the Delaware Indian chiefs on May 12, 1779. You do well to wish to learn our arts and ways of life, and above all the religion of Jesus Christ. These will make you a greater and happier people than you are. Congress will do everything they can to assist you in this wise intention, and to tie the knot of friendship and union so fast that nothing shall ever be able to loose it. Another example of the founders' view of non-Christian religion is the discussion that took place on the floor of the North Carolina State Convention that met to debate ratification of the federal Constitution. On Wednesday, July 30th, 1778, Henry Abbott, a minister, articulated serious concerns entertained by some of the delegates. They were unconvinced that the Constitution provided the same guarantees as the state constitution for citizens to practice Christianity, according to their own interpretation of the Bible, without interference from the federal government. They also were concerned that the absence of fixed religious test oaths might eventually be misconstrued to allow people who embraced false religions or even atheisms to make encroachments. Some are afraid, Mr. Chairman, that should the Constitution be received, they would be deprived of the privilege of worshiping God, according to their conscience, which would be taken from a benefit they enjoy under the present Constitution. They wish to know if their religious and civil liberties be secured under this system, or whether the general government may not make laws infringing their religious liberties. The exclusion of religious tests is by many thought dangerous and impolitic. They suppose that if there be no religious tests required, pagans, deists, and Mohammedans might obtain offices amongst us, and that the senators and representatives might all be pagans. I would be glad if some gentlemen would endeavor to obviate these objections in order to satisfy the religious part of the society. To their thinking, Hindus were included under the label pagans. A response to Abbott was offered by James Arundel, who since the Revolution had served the state of North Carolina both as a judge on the state Superior Court as well as state Attorney General, and was soon to be appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court by George Washington. Mr. Chairman, nothing is more desirable than to remove the scruples of any gentleman on this interesting subject. Those concerning religion are entitled to particular respect. He proceeded to explain at length that the establishment of one Christian sect above another always had led to persecution and war, as evidenced in Catholic countries as well as by the Church of England, from which they only recently had intricated themselves. Consequently, the restriction placed on Congress in the federal Constitution would prevent the government from interfering with the free practice of the Christian religion. He then remarked, "But is it objected that the people of America may, perhaps, choose representatives who have no religion at all, and that pagans and Mohammedans may be admitted into offices? But how is it possible to exclude any set of men without taking away that principle of religious freedom which we ourselves so warmly contend for? This is the foundation on which persecution has been raised in every part of the world. The people in power were always right, and everybody else wrong. If you admit the least difference, the door to persecution is opened Nor would it answer the purpose, for the worst part of the excluded sex would comply with the test, and the best men only be kept out of our councils. Observe that Iredell conceded that in order for the Constitution to guarantee Christians the right to worship God according to their own conscience, non-Christians inevitably would be permitted the same constitutional protection. Indeed, as previously noted, the founders never would have countenanced the persecution of atheists or those who espoused non-Christian religions. Are we to assume from this observation, however, that the founders held non-Christian religions, like Hinduism, in high regard, or that they encouraged non-Christian religions in the public sector, or that they sanctioned all religions as equally authentic and credible? Absolutely not, as Iredell further explained. But it is never to be supposed that the people of America will trust their dearest rights to persons who have no religion at all, or a religion materially different from their own. It would be happy for mankind if religion was permitted to take its course and maintain itself by the excellence of its own doctrines. The divine author of our religion never wished for its support by worldly authority. Has he not said that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it? It made such greater progress for itself than when supported by the greatest authority upon earth. Iredell reasoned that leaving the Constitution non-specific with regard to religion would prevent religious persecution. Further, tolerating non-Christian religions would not endanger the founders' assumption that Christianity would remain the worldview and moral framework that undergirds the nation. Why? Because he felt confident that Americans never would endanger their dearest rights by voting non-Christians, whether atheists, Muslims, or Hindus, into government. Inviting a Hindu to offer prayer in Congress is a step in that very direction. And did you notice Iredell's allusion to the divine author of our religion? What author and what religion do you suppose he intended? He quoted that author in his very next sentence. Has he not said that the gates of the hell shall not prevail against it? Those words are the words of Jesus Christ, as recorded in Matthew 16:18. The author to whom he referred was Christ, and Christ is the author of only one religion, Christianity, not Hinduism. Iredell next discoursed on the essentiality of an oath to be taken by those who wish to serve in the government. He insisted that this oath should contain two critical components: belief in a supreme being and belief in a future state of rewards and punishments. He even cited a legal case in England that occurred some 40 years earlier pertaining to a person who was admitted to take an oath according to the rites of his own country. Though he was a heathen, he was an East Indian who had a great suit in chancery, and his answer upon oath to a bill filed against him was absolute necessary. Not believing either in the Old or New Testament, he would not be sworn in the accustomed manner, but was sworn according to the form of the Gentile religion, which he professed by touching the foot of a priest. He appeared that, according to the tenets of this religion, its members believed in a supreme being and in a future state of rewards and punishments. It was accordingly held by the judges upon great consideration that that oath might be received. They, considering that it was probable those of that religion were equally bound in conscience by an oath according to their form of swearing as they themselves were by one of theirs, and that it would be a reproach to the justice of the country, if a man merely because he was of a different religion from their own should be denied redress of an injury he had sustained. Ever since this great case, it has been universally considered that in administering an oath, it is only necessary to acquire if the person who is to take it believes in a supreme being and in a future state of rewards and punishments. If he does, the oath is to be administered accordingly to the form which it is supposed will bind his conscience most. It is, however, necessary that such a belief be entertained, because otherwise there would be nothing to bind his conscience that would be relied on, since there are many cases where the terror of punishment in this world for perjury would not be dreaded. Gentile, a corruption of the Portuguese term gentile, meaning heathen or Gentile, was coined by Europeans to refer to the idol-worshipping peoples of India and to distinguish Hindus from Muslims. Observe that Aristotle was not advocating the equal acceptance of Hinduism. He simply offered the only means by which an essential, though non-Christian, witness can serve in a court case. Yet even those remarks are couched in the context of the difficulties posed by those who come to America but refuse to embrace the Christian worldview, since our entire justice system depends on a belief in the God of the Bible, as well as heaven and hell. The next to speak was the governor of North Carolina, Samuel Johnson. 8 years earlier, he was served as a member of the Continental Congress. He too was astonished that some were concerned that the Constitution provided insufficient guarantees of the priority and free exercise of Protestant religion to the exclusion of competing religions. I read the Constitution over and over, but could not see one cause of apprehension or jealousy on this subject. When I heard there were apprehensions that the Pope of Rome could be the President of the United States, I was greatly astonished. It might as well be said that the King of England or France or the Grand Turk, a Muslim, could be chosen to that office. It could have been as good an argument. It appears to me that it would have been dangerous if Congress would intermeddle with the subject of religion. True religion is derived from a much higher source than human laws. When any attempt is made by any government to restrain men's conscience, no good consequence can possibly follow. Observe that the governor argued that the odds of a non-Protestant getting into office were so infinitesimal as to merit little concerns. Also, being the one true religion and having the backing of God Himself, Christianity can fend for itself without the restraint of human government. But then the governor offered a rather chilling prediction. It is apprehended that Jews, Mohammedans, pagans may be elected to high offices under the government of the United States. Those who are Mohammedans or any others who are not professors of the Christian religion can never be elected to the office of president or other high office, but in one of two cases. First, if the people of America lay aside the Christian religion altogether, it may happen. Should this unfortunately take place, the people will choose such men as think as they do themselves. Another case is, if any persons of such descriptions should, notwithstanding their religion, acquire the confidence and esteem of the people of America by their good conduct and practice of virtue, which they may be chosen, I leave it to the gentleman's candor to judge what probability there is of the people's choosing men of different sentiments from themselves. Does the Constitution allow Americans to elect to political office or invite to conduct prayer in Congress? People who do not profess the Christian religion. Yes, it does. Would America ever actually do that? The founders' prediction, very unlikely and highly improbable. But if it were to happen, it would be most unfortunate, they said. Indeed, inviting a Hindu to lead Congress in prayer is equally unfortunate. Governor Johnson then explained that though each of the 13 states was populated heavily by professors of one or more of the various Protestant denominations, there is no cause of fear that any one religion shall be exclusively established. Further testimony to the fact that the single religion of the United States was almost entirely Christian in the form of Protestant sects, to the exclusion of atheism and world religions such as Hinduism. But David Caldwell, also a minister, rose and reiterated the lingering concern that danger might rise. In the first place, he said, there was an invitation for Jews and pagans of every kind to come among us. At some future period, said he, this might endanger the character of the United States. Moreover, even those who do not regard religion acknowledge that the Christian religion is best calculated of all religions to make good members of society on account of its morality. I think then, added he, that in a political view, those gentlemen who formed this Constitution should not have given this invitation to Jews and heathens. All those who have any religion are against the immigration of those people from the Eastern Hemisphere. In other words, Jews, pagans, and people from the Eastern Hemisphere, which certainly includes Hindus, would constitute a threat to the religious and moral foundation on which America was founded. They were right. After all, Hinduism is thoroughgoing pantheism. Orthodox Hindus are adamant that the nurture of cows lie at the core of Hindu Dharma, a Sanskrit term that refers to the right way of living, or the correct understanding of nature. The cow is Aghanya, that which may not be slaughtered. While not necessarily worshipped as a god, Hindu scriptures nevertheless extol the cow as sacred. The world-renowned Hindu Mahatma Gandhi insisted cow protection is the gift of Hinduism to the world. I will not kill a human being to protect a cow, as I will not kill a cow to save a human life, be it ever so precious. My religion teaches me that I should, by personal conduct, instill into the minds of those who might hold different views the conviction that cow killing is a sin and that therefore it ought to be abandoned. The founders did not share such outlandish notions. They believed the evidence for the existence of the one true God of the Bible and the truthfulness of the Christian religion was decisive. Mr. Spencer rose to reaffirm the same two reassurances asserted by Governor Johnson. It is feared that persons of bad principles, deists, atheists, may come into this country, and there is nothing to restrain them from being eligible to office. He asked if it were reasonable to suppose that the people would choose men without regarding their characters. But in this case, as there is not a religious test required, it leaves religion on the solid foundation of its own inherent validity without any connection with temporal authority. Again, the delegates were concerned about the nation remaining firmly Christian in its overall thrust, but they realized they could not force everyone to take a religious oath without creating conflict. Therefore, they relied on the good sense of the American people to refrain from appointing to political office any who do not possess Christian character, and they assume Christianity would demonstrate its own credibility and superiority without any help from human government. Governor Johnson brought the discussion to a close with an amicable summary of the mutual sentiments of his delegates as reported in the following words. He admitted a possibility of Jews, pagans, immigrating to the United States, yet he said they could not be in proportion to the immigration of Christians who should come from other countries, that in all probability the children even of such people would be Christians, and that this, with the rapid population of the United States, their zeal for religion and love of liberty would, he trusted, add to the progress of the Christian religion among us. The founders were walking a tightrope. On one hand, they did not want to be coercive in the matter of religion. They did not want to cram Christianity down anyone's throat. They wanted America free of religious persecution. On the other hand, they understood that the truthfulness and superiority of the Christian religion was the essential platform on which America's political institutions were poised. So they assuaged their fears by consoling themselves with the thought that the American people would forever have the good sense to retain Christianity as the central religion of the nation, and that they would refrain from inviting into their national councils and halls of government anyone who did not share those religious and moral convictions. These early Americans surely would be incredulous, bewildered, and disgusted if they were here to witness a Hindu on the floor of the U.S. Senate chanting a Hindu prayer to gods, which by nature are no gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Galatians 4 verse 8, 2 Kings 19 verse 18. Let all be put to shame who serve carved images, who boast of idols. Psalms 97 verse 7. When one compares the Christianity that was practiced by the majority of Americans in early America with the Christianity that is being practiced in 21st American century, one cannot help but marvel at the disparity. Consider the following four contrasts. First, those who professed Christianity in early America believed firmly that Christianity was the one and only true religion. The vast majority of them believed that all other belief systems, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, and atheism, were false. They even largely rejected Catholicism as an acceptable expression of Christianity. But in today's politically correct climate, few are willing to assert that all Americans are defective. Pluralism has softened attitudes to the extent that most Americans no longer recognize the superiority of Christianity to every other ideology and its critical role to national survival. Does the Constitution allow Americans to elect to political office people who do not profess the Christian religion? Yes, it does. Would Americans actually ever do that? The founders' response: very unlikely and highly improbable. But if indeed it were ever to happen, it would be most unfortunate. Governor Johnson then explained that though each of the 13 states was heavily populated by professors of one or more of the various Protestant denominations, there is no cause of fear that any one religion shall be exclusively established. Further testimony to the fact that the single religion of the United States was almost entirely Christian, in the form of Protestant sects, to the exclusion of atheism and the world religion. But Mr. David Caldwell, also a minister, rose and reiterated the lingering concern that danger might arise. In the first place, he said, there was an invitation for Jews and pagans of every kind to come among us. At some future period, said he, this might endanger the character of the United States. Moreover, even those who do not regard religion acknowledge that the Christian religion is best calculated of all religions to make good members of society on account of its morality. I think then, added he, that in a political view, those gentlemen who formed this Constitution should not have given this invitation to Jews and heathens. All those who have any religion are against the immigration of those people from the Eastern Hemisphere. In other words, Jews, pagans, and people from the Eastern Hemisphere, which certainly includes Muslims, would constitute a threat to the religious and moral foundation on which America was founded. Mr. Spencer rose to reaffirm the same two reassurances asserted by Governor Johnson. It is feared that persons of bad principles, deists, atheists, may come into this country, and there's nothing to restrain them from being eligible to offices. He asked if it was reasonable to suppose that the people would choose men without regarding their characters. But in this case, as there is not a religious test required, it leaves religion on the solid foundation of its own inherent validity, without any connection with temporal authority. Again, yes, we are concerned about the nation remaining firmly Christian in its overall thrust, but we cannot force everyone to take a religious oath without creating conflict. Therefore, we must rely on the good sense of the American people to refrain from appointing to political office any who do not possess Christian character, and Christianity is able to maintain its own credibility and superiority without any help from human government. Governor Johnson brought the discussion to a close with an amicable summary of the mutual sentiments of the delegates, as reported in the following words. He admitted a possibility of Jews, pagans, immigrating to the United States, yet he said they could not be in proportion to the immigration of Christians who should come from other countries, that in all probability the children even of such people would be Christians, and that this, with the rapid population of the United States, their zeal for religion and love of liberty would be trusted, and to the progress of the Christian religion among us. The founders were literally walking a tightrope. On the one hand, they did not want to coercive in the matter of religion. They did not want to cram Christianity down anyone's throat. They wanted America to be free of religious persecution. On the other hand, they understood that the truthfulness and superiority of the Christian religion was the essential platform on which America's political institutions were poised. So they assuaged their fears by consoling themselves with the thought that the American people would forever have the good sense to retain Christianity as the central religion of the nation, and that they would refrain from placing into political office anyone who did not share their religious and moral convictions. These early Americans surely would be incredulous, alarmed, and disappointed if they were here to witness the addition of a Muslim to the U.S. House of Representatives, let alone his insistence that he take the oath of office on the Quran rather than the Bible. We, the people of the state of California, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom, in order to secure and perpetuate its blessings, do establish this Constitution. The gradual erosion of traditional American values, which most certainly has included belief in the God of the Bible, continues. A recent poll shows that 96% of Americans still believe in God, yet 37% would vote for an atheist for president. Such is the inevitable infiltration of the nation's political infrastructure as Christian values continue to to be systematically jettisoned from schools, government, and public life. So what? Does it really matter whether the population of the United States, along with its elected representatives and other public officials, maintain belief in the God of the Bible? Isn't such diversity of ideas healthy and beneficial to the overall well-being of society? Certainly, atheists, humanists, and evolutionists answer in the affirmative, insisting that a religionless society is the ideal. On the other hand, Christians recognize that any nation that denies the existence of the one true God and rejects the moral precepts contained within the Christian system ultimately will meet its demise. The psalmist cut to the chase on this point. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Psalms 33 verse 12. The wicked shall be turned to hell, and all the nations that forget God. Psalms 9:17. From the day of the Declaration, the people of the North American Union and of its constituent states were associated bodies of civilized men and Christians in a state of nature but not of anarchy. They were bound by the laws of God, which they all, and by the laws of the gospel, which they nearly all, acknowledged as their rules of their conduct. Now, back in the Revolutionary War, during the tumultuous years of the war, the Continental Congress issued no fewer than 9 proclamations to the nation, each of which called upon the entire country to render homage to the God of the Bible so that they might be blessed with victory, peace, and prosperity. To see the depth of the founders' reliance and dependency on God and Christianity, consider just one of those statements issued by Congress on October 1780, the 4th year of war with Britain. Whereas it hath pleased Almighty God, the Father of all mercies, amidst the vicissitudes and calamities of war, to bestow blessings on the people of these states, which call for their devout and thankful acknowledgments, more especially in the late remarkable interposition of His watchful providence, in rescuing the person of our Commander-in-Chief and the Army from imminent dangers, at the moment when treason was ripened for execution, in prospering the labors of the husbandmen, and causing the earth to yield its increase in plentiful harvest, and above all, in continuing to us the enjoyment of the gospel of peace. It is therefore recommended to the several states to set apart Thursday, the 7th day of December, next to be observed as a day of public thanksgiving and prayer, that all people may assemble on that day to celebrate the praises of our divine benefactor, to confess our unworthiness of the least of His favors, and to offer our fervent supplications to the God of all grace, that it may please Him to pardon our heinous transgressions and incline our hearts for the future to keep all His law, that it may please Him. Still to afford us the blessing of health, to comfort and relieve our brethren who are of any wise afflicted or distressed, to smile upon our husbandry and trade and establish the work of our hands, to direct our public councils and lead our forces by land and sea to victory, to take our illustrious ally under His special protection, and favor our joint counsels and exertions for the establishment of speedy and permanent peace, to cherish all schools and seminaries of education, build up His churches in their most holy faith, and to cause the knowledge of Christianity to spread over all the earth. Done in Congress the last day of October 1780, and in the 5th year of the independence of the United States of America. These men believed that the survival of America depends on the favor and blessings of God. What a far outcry from those in America today who are content with atheists in Congress, not to mention in universities all over America. As more and more Americans eliminate belief in God from their lives, as atheism progressively encroaches upon our political and educational institutions, we may fully expect to see the withdrawal of His care. In the words of George Washington, I am sure there never was a people who had more reason to acknowledge a divine interposition in their affairs than those of the United States, and I shall be pained to believe that they have forgotten that agency which was so often manifested during our revolution, or that they failed to consider the omnipotence of that God who is alone able to protect them. This concludes the Religion History 101 Christianity versus Hinduism segment of our show, Racing to the White House. Thank you for watching Racing to the White House. My name is Angela Kaaihue, and I am a candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, running as a Republican in District 2 and a Democrat for the special election in District 1. Because we need to come together and come up with bipartisan solutions to the issues Hawaii is faced with today. Mahalo and a hui ho until we meet again next time. Aloha.